We are back at it. Ohio State takes care of not top 5 Penn State in a game that was supposed to be a clash of two titans. Obviously, Penn State's season did not end up going as planned, but Ohio State took care of business and continues to look like the dominant team in the entire sport. I'm Chris. That's my guy, Ron. Ron, what's up?
Nothing much. You know the best thing about being 8-0.
Chance to go 9-0, and I cannot believe the season is flying like this, by the way.
I know. I had to make sure that I had the number of wins right because I can't even believe that the Buckeyes have won 8 games. The season is just flying past. And man, what felt like could be a potential 1 versus 2 matchup doesn't quite live up to the hype. A close game for a half, but the Buckeyes pull away in dominating fashion in the second half and get a victory 38-14 over the Penn State Nittany Lions.
Yeah, man, you saw some life out of Penn State, right? Like they were a team, I mean, first play of the game, like gashing the big run. It was like, okay, like this team is up for this game. Because I wondered, would this Penn State team be one that was so broken in spirit, they were just kind of come in and accept what was headed their way in this Ohio State team that looks like the very best team in the entire sport. And they looked good early, but we also saw them kind of waste their best punch early, and then Ohio State kind of returned to dominance. I do want to start with kind of what this matchup meant storyline-wise. I mean, this was Jim Knowles versus Ryan Day. This was the petty off. This was, okay, look, you won a national title with me. We won it together last year. Obviously, some things went on behind closed doors, and you opted to leave right before our parade. And now you got to come back to Columbus, and all the players had that circled. I mean, even Devin Sanchez, a kid who was in high school at the time, was a early enrollee freshman who came in, tweeted as soon as Jim Knowles left, look, November 1st, and this was that day. Thoughts on how Ryan Day called his game with Brian Hartline against Jim Knowles?
I mean, you saw it straight from the start of the game that you saw the Buckeyes do things that you've watched plague Buckeye defenses in years past. You see them start with early tempo, something that gave the Buckeyes struggle in that Oregon game last year and almost derailed their season as far as the way things were going on defense. Sonny Stiles talked about it on the Downs to Business podcast about the stress of having the green dot on your helmet when you're the defensive play caller receiving the play calls from Jim Knowles, because he's so diverse in his play calling. Sometimes it takes him a long time to get the play in, and then it takes a minute for the defense to digest it. As some of the freshman defensive backs or some of the Penn State defensive backs have talked about learning Jim Knowles' scheme this year and how certain plays have potentially 6 different responsibilities depending on what the offense does, and it takes a bit of time to learn. And I think the Buckeyes tried to take advantage of that early with the tempo that you saw and the way that they tried to attack Jim Knowles' defense early, especially with the pass. Julian Sayin goes 7 for 7 for, I believe, 61 or 71 yards.
Yeah.
I believe 71 yards on his first drive. So to see them come out with their hair on fire with that offense, set 3 drives and 17 points if you don't count that last fumble by CJ Donaldson. So I think the Buckeyes came out with a plan to jump out on this Penn State offense, especially because we knew they wanted to come out and establish the run, and we saw them do that early in the game, but the Buckeyes were able to pull out in the second half and make them switch things up on offense.
Yeah, man. I mean, you kind of nailed it. Like the things that have plagued like Ohio State defenses when Jim Knowles was here, Ryan Day just used all of them. Like base 11 personnel, a lot more bringing in his snaps. I mean, a lot more, taking advantage of one-on-one shots. Dude, I was stunned that early in the game that Jim Knowles opted to go one-on-one with, Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. It's like, dog, like these guys. Like you saw these guys every single day in practice, and that we're out there one-on-one against the 2 best receivers in the entire sport. I thought it was arrogance by Jim Knowles, and I don't understand how he can be arrogant given that they haven't won a Power 4 game yet.
That was absolutely a Jim Knowles ego play because, I mean, they even talked about it on the broadcast. Chip Kelly had a saying last year, was if Jeremiah is single covered, then he's open. Mm-hmm. And they tried to cover Jeremiah Smith and then they even I don't know if this was a Ryan Day nod to Mina Kimes, showed that you could beat quarters over the top with Jeremiah Smith. That was the big hot Twitter debate in football this past weekend on the timeline, and Ryan Day goes out there and proves Mina right. So Coach JB is going to have to sit with that one.
Yeah, dude, it was nuts. And like for me, when I see like Carnell Tate covered one-on-one, I'm like, okay, like I understand it because you're likely doubling Jeremiah, right? So like I understand that. But then when you see Carnell Tate one-on-one and also Jeremiah Smith one-on-one, I'm sitting back like, oh, what? Like, wait a second, what's happening? And what's happening, Ron, is right before our very eyes. We are getting an electric dynamic duo that feels like a match made in heaven. Julian Sayin and Carnell Tate, with the deep ball in particular, is becoming one of the really cool sub stories of this Ohio State football team. Because we all know who's the best receiver on this team, Jeremiah Smith. But Carnell Tate has some smoothness from Chris Olave. He's a bigger receiver, a long strider, late hands, contested catch guy. And Julian Sayin, oddly enough, feels like Carnell Tate on a 30 to 40-yard throw is almost a security blanket. It's exceptional to watch. This feels like peak chemistry.
Absolutely. Peak chemistry between these two guys. And they talked about it on the broadcast. Jeremiah Smith being just as happy for Carnell Tate. These are two guys that we've watched play together since Jeremiah Smith was a sophomore in high school and Carnell Tate was a junior. We watched them win a national championship together in 7-on-7, where Carnell Tate was the older of the two receivers and helped lead that team to a championship. And you're watching those two work together again. But the chemistry between Julian Sayin and Carnell Tate seems to be on a different level, and the trust factor that he has with him of I saw PFF tweeted out Carnell Tate's down there somewhere, because that's what it feels like the offense. That feels like the offense that they're running right now of you can't stop our receivers. I don't care if our running game doesn't look the greatest, because the combination of teams that are going to be able to run and score on this defense and also cover Ohio State receivers, I don't know if there's a team out there in the country that checks all of those boxes.
You know, it's wild, Ron, and this is where I crossed over into a territory where I'm like, oh my God, I am so spoiled. Last year and the year before, when you saw a deep ball go up, you kind of wince a little bit, and hopefully our guy comes down with it. This year, as soon as I see Julian Sayin load up, I'm like, oh, completion. And it's not supposed to feel that way. You're supposed to be like, okay, catch, good, we're good. No, this time it's like, oh, we're good. It's like, the best way to describe it is like when you watch Steph Curry hit threes. When Steph Curry gets in the mode and he starts hitting threes, it feels like as soon as that ball is let off his hands, oh, it's a bucket. It's not supposed to feel that way. You're supposed to like hold your breath a little bit but then like Steph Curry did the thing where it's like his threes felt like layups. These deep balls from Julian Sayin feel like layups, and it's hilarious because I keep remembering one of the takes from earlier this year from whatever show talking about
SEC fans, I believe is the name of the show.
Yeah, I don't know what the name of the show is, but Julian Sayin has limitations throwing the deep ball. It's like, no, that's a layup. That's a layup. And it's like, you know, I get frustrated about the play calling. Everybody does it at times. It's whatever. But like, I think it must feel good for Brian Hartline and Ryan Day to know, well, if the offense can't get going, we've got these two. Oh, and Jeremiah Smith. So it's instant offense. It's instant ramen. It's instant offense. Let's get it going. So I feel so spoiled, Ron. I feel so spoiled.
Absolutely. And you talk about knowing when Julian Sayin loads up that it's going to just be a touchdown with the consistency that they've had on these deep shots. You know what it feels like for me? Back when Lane Kiffin was out at Alabama, and you would see him throwing his hands up before the ball's even out of the quarterback's hands because he already knew he schemed up the perfect touchdown.
Yeah.
And Lane's already running to the end zone before the ball's in the receiver's hands. And you go back and watch some of these big plays by Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, you'll see Brandon Ennis in the middle of the field, feet off the ground, already jumping, celebrating the touchdown because he has that much faith in his quarterback and his, the receivers around him. So to see them that confident out there, and the fact that Julian Sayin seems to have the most chemistry with the number 2 wide receiver on the team, who's going to be the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL draft.
Yeah.
It feels like things we've talked about the approach of Death Star mode. We've talked about that team that jumps up out of nowhere and surprises everybody of, oh man, that's going to be the juggernaut of the sport. And again, it feels like the second year in a row, the Buckeyes are looking around in maniac mode, trying to find that maniac. And they are in fact that maniac.
Dude, it's like, it's not supposed to look like this, right? Julian Sayin had 3 incompletions on the day. Just 3.
Same amount of touchdowns.
Usually, yeah, 3 and 5, and 4 touchdowns, right?
Or 4 touchdowns. 4 touchdowns. So more touchdowns than incompletions.
And when you have a guy that only has 3 incompletions, Ron, usually that means, okay, 3 yards here, 3 yards here, 3 yards here. It's a lot of almost extension of the run game. No. This was 3 incompletions and averaging 13.7 yards per attempt. And then, the guys who have the bulk of those catches, at least 5 and 6, so 11 of those catches, Carnell Tate, 5 catches, 24.8 yards on average. Jeremiah Smith, 6 catches, 20 yards on average. Both had a long of 57, and that's 3 touchdowns. We're talking about somebody who is just giving you long handoffs. Long handoffs.
Absolutely. And I mean, you see Brandon Innes get involved in the screen game, and the most that we've seen him get involved all year with 4 catches and 41 yards. And then the next thing of note, when you're looking at the passing chart, you see 3 different tight ends get involved, which continues the trend of, we asked about what's this identity of this offense going to look like. We've seen a ton of use of the tight end play at Ohio State throughout this year, more than we've ever seen. And we started to see more 11 personnel towards the second half of the season, but they're still finding ways to get tight ends involved. You see Bennett Christensen get a touchdown today. Max Clare, I think he had one of his better games blocking and also gets involved in the receiving game. To see the Buckeyes offense really clicking, which felt like the question mark at some points during the season. Like you said, people were questioning Julian Sayin's deep ball. People have been questioning the run game. And with the way this pass offense is clicking and the way the defense is playing, one of the problems that the Buckeyes had in years past was the offense was explosive, and they were able to supplement that with the pass game, but they didn't have the defense to hold up with the pace of play. The Buckeyes have that type of defense. I mean, you saw Dwayne Haskins not have the greatest run game. You've seen CJ Stroud have struggles with the run game in years past. And right now, it's looking like, whatever, just go out there and score 45, because they used our magic number on the broadcast. They said they'd really like to keep this team under 17. And I said, there's no one that would like to see them stay under 17 more than us, because we've been talking about that being the magical number for a Ryan Day team. If the defense is able to hold the other team to 17, you can count on one hand the amount of times in the last 5 years that a Ryan Day offense hasn't scored 17 points.
Bingo. You're a tape guy. I'm a tape guy. Something that we kind of do in our spare time to like really stay studied up with this sport. This was the first game this year that they went 11 personnel base. And I don't want to get like too deep in the football weeds, but Ron, I guess I want to ask you, because I think that this is the best rendition of the Ohio State personnel packages on offense. Do you like and do you hope to see 11 personnel as a base for them moving forward? Because it really hasn't been all year. I like it, though. I think keeping that third wide receiver on the field definitely works. I think having Brandon Innes out there more is kind of the best version of this. Do you like the move this week in particular to go to 11 personnel?
Yeah, because I think that opens the door for when the wide receiver room is completely healthy and you see a guy like Quincy Porter come back. And we've already seen them start to experiment with Carnell Tate in the slot. And even without Quincy Porter playing today, you saw Carnell Tate lined up in the slot a couple times this game. So I think that just makes this offense more multiple. And if you're talking about 11 personnel and your 2 tight ends are 6'4", 225-pound Jeremiah Smith and 6'3", 210-pound Quincy Porter, practically have many tight ends out there anyways in the run game when you're out there running 11 personnel.
Yeah, again, I like it, and I think 11 personnel like allows, I guess, like the receivers just to get more involved in every facet. So I like this grouping. I think this version of the Ohio State offense feels like it gives you the best balance to me. And I do want to give Brian Hartline some flowers with that. I want to talk our running game, Ron, because at times it's felt anemic this year, and this game in particular, I thought it looked really good. We do have kind of a new 1-2 punch in town from the looks of it. I mean, the guys that kind of were out there a ton, or it felt like a ton, the future dynamic duo in terms of like Ohio State future offensive run games, Bo Jackson and Isaiah West. I want to start with Bo Jackson, 13 carries, 105, 8.1 average. He is the leader in the clubhouse, 100-yard game. He's the man, right? Like that's settled. He's the man.
Absolutely. I don't know how many more times we can ask this question about this room, but then when they keep putting James Peoples and CJ Donaldson, it feels like they have a point to prove about feeling that those guys are good enough to play. But Bo Jackson, you look at the stats every time he gets the line share of carries, he does what he did today, 13 carries, 8.1 yards per carry. I don't know how this is up for debate anymore. You'd like to see him have more success in the red zone, but we've talked about it, and you brought up how much we watch the tape. You see a lot of these red zone struggles are yes, on the back needing to make someone miss, but they talked about it on the broadcast as well. The amount of whiffs that we see specifically in the red zone are what's causing these struggles.
Yeah.
The interior of the offensive line struggled a bit today, and I think that's why you saw some of the struggles in the red zone and why you continue to see the struggles in the red zone. But I think the Buckeyes are still making progress, and DeCebo Jackson and the way the explosive plays were hitting for the offense this today against Penn State, I don't know how much rushing they're going to need in the red zone this season, but you would like to see them get that cleaned up. But Bo Jackson seems to be the lead back in this room, and I don't even know if it's up for debate anymore.
Yeah, Bo's the man. And so this graphic, we got Bo and Isaiah West. And for me, Bo's arrived. I think that Isaiah West is coming. I think Isaiah West is like the Bobby Hurley thing. Like, get me now because it's coming. I know he only had 4 carries. I know only had 13 yards. But the make you miss early and the burst, the step through, the get skinny on the 11-yard run, it's like there's something in there. I don't know when it's coming, but there's something in there with Isaiah.
Yeah, I mean, Bo had a 51-yard run, and I'd argue that Isaiah West's 11-yard run was more impressive.
Yeah.
The way that he was able to get skinny in the whole fight for tough yards and then almost gets stopped a yard short of the first down, and he's in a pile of people and completely changes direction with 3 people hanging on his back and fights for an extra yard. And I'm like, those are the type of runs that we need. People that can get skinny through the hole quickly and then fight for tough yards after. And we've talked about CJ Donaldson in this power back role, but it just doesn't look the way that your traditional power back looks because he's a converted tight end, not a traditional running back. And I think the ceiling for this offense is with the 2 backs that you see pictured on the screen right now, and getting Isaiah West up to speed, I think is going to be a huge boost for this offense going forward.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I do want to flip over to the defensive side of the ball. Hey, man, our guy Arvel Reese, he's 101. He's really different. I thought he played out of his mind, Ron. And another one of the funny takes that I've seen all over the cultural media world this week is that Arvel Reese somehow is not playing at All-American level. He had 12 total tackles, 5 solo tackles, a sack, and 2.5 tackles for loss. He felt like he was all over the place. He's only getting better, and it's wild because by week 1, he was probably the best linebacker in the entire sport.
Absolutely. I would love to know who these All-American linebackers are. So after we wrap this show, I can go take a look at them if they're putting up better stats than what we saw from Arvel Reese today. An absolute menace on the field. And it feels like every other week Arvel Reese and Caleb Downs are the constant. And it feels like every other week we see a defender raise their hand and say, don't forget about me.
Bingo.
And this week it was Kenyatta Jackson's turn.
Yeah. Kenyatta played out of his mind, dude. And like, shout out to like Matt Patricia for like kind of allowing him to eat. I thought both coordinators did a really good job of like showcasing like, you know, some stars that they have in their own right. Kenyatta was awesome, man. Like, I know some people feel like he's been a little bit disappointing. I know that he has kind of talked about wanting to get after the quarterback more, but it felt like every single bad thing that happened to Penn State, there was one guy, 6'6", number 97 in the middle of the bad things happening for Penn State. I mean, I'll let you kind of elaborate on it, but I thought he was fabulous.
Absolutely. 4 total tackles, 2 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss, a pass breakup. Chris, a little peek behind the curtain. We're preparing the show while the game is going on, and there's times where my head's down because I'm working on graphics, and Kenyatta Jackson. I had my phone in one hand and my remote in the other because I was constantly playing what was going on because it felt like Kenyatta Jackson, no matter what the play was, found a way to get involved. And I saw a tweet on the timeline about what it meant for the culture at Ohio State to be able to retain guys like Caden Curry, because we had this conversation about Caden Curry 4 weeks ago about it had been years since we saw a defender wreck a game individually like the way we saw Caden Curry do it. And we see Kenyatta Jackson have this same type of game today. And these are 2 guys that could have easily entered the portal and not participated in that national championship run last year because they were beyond capable of playing, but they're sitting behind guys like JTT and Jack Sawyer and another guy like Jermaine Matthews, who also had to wait their turn. And now you see the things that they're doing on this defense and how they trusted the process, and it's paying off for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's paying off in a huge way. And like, it's also a good recruiting tool for the future. Cause it's like, yes, like you can go somewhere else, but if you wait your turn, you are going to get spotlighted, and it's going to really show because I mean, he's a guy that like today, I felt like his stat sheet kind of did him a disservice. Like, I think he was more impactful than his stat sheet showed, and his stat sheet showed a hyper-productive day for a defensive end.
I think listening to the audio of the broadcast would have done more justice than the
Yeah.
box score, because you couldn't listen to the game and not hear his name. And I've made the argument that you could argue that Larry Johnson's biggest recruiting win in the last 5 years was keeping Kenyatta Jackson
Bingo.
and Caden Curry out of the portal for 3 years while they sat behind 2 NFL defensive ends.
And that's a big thing. People don't, and obviously, like, this isn't a recruiting show, but I know people like to kill LJ for some of the recruiting stuff. You don't have to bring in 5 defensive ends every year if you keep the ones that are in your room year over year over year. Like, you only have to replenish what you lose. And if you're not losing it, you're good to kind of focus in on 1 or 2 and kind of lock those guys in. And Kenyatta Jackson is proof of that. He's finally like realizing his talent. On the other side of this graphic, we've got our guy, Brian Hartline, who was rumored with in connection with the Penn State job, and then Jeremiah Smith, who had the long 57-yarder, like, played out of his mind. But the best play of the day, I think, from either side of the ball was the tip that goes up. And Jeremiah, once again, reminds us that I'm not human. These rules that apply to these mere mortals do not apply to me, and goes up with one hand, makes a ridiculous catch, keeps his feet, and reaches across for the touchdown. Dude, I know that Julian Sayin is likely the best Heisman candidate, like, on this team. I know he likely has the best chance. But if the Heisman, in the Heisman spirit, my mind is, okay, best player in America. Like, who's the very best player in America? And I think if you're going best player in America now, or best player in America, if you combine the last 5 years, smash it all together into one, I think number 4 is the best player that America has seen probably since Chase Young. Like, it's almost unreal to watch, to the point where, again, spoiled Chris Drew, I don't even get surprised when he does stuff like this. It's like, oh, that's Jeremiah. Oh, that's regular day at the office. When you look around the country, and 0.0001% of people on planet Earth can do what he does.
Absolutely. And you have to, Brian Hartline is on this graphic for a reason, and you understand why Penn State is interested in a guy like that, specifically because of Brian Hartline's primary pipeline, which appears to be outer space, because he keeps filling this room with aliens. And if you're able to recruit like that, I would want you as my head coach too, because if we're going to be playing aliens versus humans, I'm betting on the aliens. So to say what you want about Brian Hartline, the play caller, the lack of experience as a head coach, you keep putting aliens out on the field like Jeremiah Smith. I don't even think you need a great play caller or staff, because you're not playing fair. And it feels like the Buckeyes offense isn't playing fair when you have Carnell Tate, who in any other year would be the favorite to win the Blitnikoff, and he's not even going to get the fair share of votes that he deserves, because his teammate is likely going to win it.
100% agree. And I just cannot believe we have both of them here at the same time. Like, having both of them here at the same time has been incredible. Carnell Tate is a guy that I think is going to have a better NFL career than he did a college football career, which is wild when you consider the fact that, we are watching him have a great college career. So, this game, I know that it got up to a weird start. I know that it was a close game right after the half. I know that there was a CJ Donaldson fumble that kind of made things a little tricky. I know, like, I'm aware that all those things happened. But this Ohio State team is about 95% of the way there to Death Star mode. And meanwhile, no one else is even close. There's no Luke Skywalker out there. There's no rebellion out there. Like, this is a team that is pushing the right buttons and continues to show everybody that not only do we have coaching that's better than everybody else in the country, but our players look different than everybody else in the country. Watching Jeremiah Smith is incredible. Do you think that Ohio State gets 2 players to New York City for the Heisman Trophy?
They deserve to.
I think they deserve to. I'm just wondering, do you think one will hurt the other, I guess? Do you think that Jeremiah Smith's dominance gets hurt by how good, Julian Sayin is? Do you think that Julian Sayin gets hurt by how good Jeremiah is? Because I think they both need to be in New York, but I don't know if it'll end up working out that way.
I think it's going to end up being just Julian, because the quarterback is going to get so much attention right now. And I think what hurts Jeremiah's case to go there more than Julian, I think, is the performance by Carnell Tate so far this season. And just because you have 2 wide receivers that are putting up comparable numbers on the same team, with the commonality being the quarterback, I think Julian's going to get the nod there. I felt like a lot of Buckeye fans, or a lot of people, came into this game with not a lot, and the expectation that the Buckeyes were just going to blow out Penn State because of the way that we've seen this team perform. And I don't think the Buckeyes are going to get enough credit for the way this game turned out, given the amount of talent on this Penn State team. Yeah, they lost Drew Aller, but at the end of the day, this is a team loaded with NFL talent, 2 NFL running backs, and the Buckeyes were challenged in the running game, and you like the way that they stepped up. And they also were forced to execute in moments when their backs were almost against the wall. I know the Buckeyes came up, they came out of the second half up 17-14, but after that mishap with CJ Donaldson on the in their own territory, and then Penn State comes out and scores, and felt like the Buckeyes played a dominant first half, but the score did not look like that on the scoreboard at halftime. And to see Julian Sayin come out and lead a touchdown drive right after the half, and this offense keep rolling and them not even blink, I thought that was a great test that should be encouraging for Buckeye fans, that even when this team is tested, even when they're playing well, but things may not be going great because of a mistake or two, they never blink. In the face of adversity, the Mike Tomlin phrasing, they always joke that Mike Tomlin needs some eye drops because he's always talking about never blinking, but it feels like this Ohio State team is the same way because nothing seems to faze them.
Dude, we've talked for 25 minutes about this Ohio State team and haven't brought up Caleb Downs, who really had a really big time game. I thought he was going to get ejected, dog. I thought for sure that like we were going to miss him for the first half next week. I thought it was targeting. Glad that it wasn't, because it didn't seem as malicious as some of the other non-targetings I've seen. And then later that drive, he ends up getting an interception just to kind of put the cherry on top. I watched his defense run, and I still am stunned that Jim Knowles opted to leave. I know a lot of stuff happened behind the scenes, but like whenever they cut over to Matt Patricia and they cut over to like guys hugging him, like I can't believe that a defensive coordinator got to walk into a loaded room like this because someone else thought the grass was greener elsewhere. I do think though the Penn State defensive line played really well, but for as well as they played, our defense just has more freaks.
Absolutely. I mean, you come into the season where Caleb Downs is considered the consensus best player in the country on defense, and we ask on a weekly basis, sure he's better than Arvel Reese?
He's not. He's not better than me. He's not better than Arvel.
So it just speaks to the level of talent on this defense. And you brought up Jim Knowles leaving this team. Clearly there's no love lost in Columbus, because they, at one point during the game, they put Jim Knowles up on the Jumbotron for all of Ohio Stadium to boo him. And then they move the camera to Matt Patricia to watch the entire stadium celebrate him. And it's kind of like the SpongeBob Squidward meme, where it's like they scream for anything that SpongeBob does. And then if Squidward even sticks his hand out on stage, they're booing. And it felt the same way with Jim Knowles.
Dude, we're such twins, dog. Because I thought about that same thing. I thought about that one and the little kid at the Jumbotron. They would put it on him. They would cheer. They cut it away. Look, I love that level of pettiness from Ohio State and like Ohio Stadium. There were some people that believed that Jim Knowles deserved a warm welcome back. I was not one of those people. I firmly am against that. But no, it was awesome to see. And again, this team just continues to impress. Is this the best linebacker duo you've seen since you started covering Ohio State?
Since I started covering Ohio State, it might be one of the best since I started watching Ohio State. And people are like, whoa. I became an Ohio State fan later in life during my college search. So I did miss some of the golden years of linebacking at Ohio State. But in the last 50, I'd argue that this might be the best duo in the last 15 years.
So I cut up my Ohio State eras by like
head coach,
like modern era. I call like the Urban and Day era. Like I call that. I think this is the best linebacker duo we've had in the Urban and Day era, right?
Easily.
And I would argue, I mean, for me, I really started paying attention to Ohio State in 2006. I think this is the best duo I've seen since 06. Because like I watch Sonny Stiles, cover a guy like 15, 20 yards up the field. And then I watch him also fly down and crack somebody. And then I remember, oh, wow, Sonny's kind of everywhere. And then you remember that he's the second best linebacker on the team. It's like, that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, that's absolutely not supposed to happen. Chris, I wanted to ask you one quick thing before we got out of here. Ross Bjork has been getting a lot of flack, but one of the things that I think deserves credit for is his emphasis on improving the game day experience and the new traditions that he's created, the elements that he's added to essentially say, I don't want there to be a single dull moment in Ohio Stadium when the Buckeyes are here putting on a game. You see the back and forth on the Jumbotron with Jim Knowles and Patricia, that level of trolling there. You have Urban Meyer ringing the victory bell, which is, I still contend, one of the most disrespectful traditions in all of sports, ringing a victory bell before you play a game.
No one talks about that.
It's one of the most insane traditions in all of sports right now. And then today, Brutus jumps off the top of the stadium and zip lines into the middle of the 50-yard line. They're sparing no expense when it comes to upgrading this game day experience. I know they announced that they're leveling up the video viewing boards throughout the stadium and then hoping to get a new Jumbotron in the coming years. I think Ross Bjork deserves a little bit of credit, because even in a game that could have lost a little bit of excitement, it looked like Buckeye Nation showed up and showed out, and hope everyone had a great time at the game because it looked like a blast.
100%. That's a great note to end on, Ron. 100%.
Absolutely. You know how this thing ends. It's always go Bucks. And of course, OH.
IO.